Hello, this is story 21. The stone house where evil resided. And like the title implies, this is probably the scariest story I've told yet. The other ones I don't consider scary for the most part. This one definitely had some bad things in it. And so I forewarn you of this, some of you. Where do I start? I don't know the legalities of telling stories of haunted property. It might be it's obviously somebody's house, somebody else's house now. And what if I'm going to pin it as haunted? I mean, I don't know the legalities of it, so not too much worried about it, but New York State has a law: if you sell a house that's haunted and you don't disclose that to the people that buy it and they have problems, they have grounds to try to get out of that sale. And New York State calls it a house with psychological issues. This house had psychological issues, definitely. I rented the place, I didn't buy it, and this is in Whitehall, New York. That's upstate. That's north of Lake George, up in the Adirondack Mountains, where I was at the time, some years ago. I had a lot of things happen to me when I was up in Whitehall and up by Ticonderoga. A lot of these stories occurred then. And I want to explain to you my life then. It's between ages 27 and 32, but I was living very pious for me, going to church as often as possible, trying to find God in everything, and for the most part shunning relationships intentionally. At any rate, but I don't know why, but I had a lot of things happen to me up there. I had a lot of things happen to me to this present day, but I don't know, I'm just going through my life, picking, like throwing darts, see where it hits. I'm going to tell the story of the stone house where evil resided. So I moved into this place, and let me describe it. I call it a stone house, but it's only partially stone. The rest was wood, and it was a small, really small house, really a 2-story cottage. And it sat on a rock ledge, a stone ledge, overlooking Whitehall's canal, where the Lake Champlain becomes South Bay, and then South Bay becomes a canal. And it overlooked the locks there. And I could have sat on my porch and thrown a rock pretty much into the lake, almost, not quite, or the canal. And it had stone stairs leading up to this little ledge that somebody blasted or carved out of the side of this giant mountain in Whitehall. And it was right pretty much on the outskirts of the village, so I could walk anywhere from there. And the price was right, and the size was right, really. It had 2 small bedrooms upstairs, a small crowded bathroom upstairs with a tub and a sink and a toilet. Downstairs was a living room and a kitchen that were kind of one room, and it had a little, like a dining room that was real quaint, all enclosed in with like bay windows all the way around, paned. And it really was a nice place, good bachelor pad, really. So I rented the place, and my landlord lived a little bit across the street, a woman, single woman, probably 50-ish or so then. And it was ideal. I gotta say, I didn't have any problems there. When I first moved in, I didn't have any problems at all, honestly. Some of these hauntings have to do with the location and not me. It's either I bring the things out or I'm attracted to places that are haunted. I don't know which. But some of the places I go to have had other people with problems. In this case, at first, I didn't have any problems there. So I thought it was great. And then my son and daughter, they were age 10 and 11 then, came to stay with me that summer and thought they'd give it a go and stay with Dad and go to school in that town. And right off day one, my daughter had some serious problems there. That's when things started not looking good. I recall she was moving her things in. I told my son, this is your room upstairs. My daughter, this is your room. And they were both very happy to be there. They thought it was really cool. Going to live with Dad in this cool old house and this neat town with the lake and the canal there right in front of us. One big adventure, summer, sunny day. It was nice. But my daughter had issues there. And I was sleeping downstairs on the couch. So that was the plan. So my kids are moving into their bedrooms. My son was outside when this event happened. My daughter was in the house alone. And I want to tell you first off, my daughter, Anne, isn't the sort to make up stories. She's intelligent. She's honest. She's a homemaker. She's not a drama queen at any regard. A scale of 1 to 10 on drama, people love drama, she'd be a 1 or a 0. If there's such thing as a 0, I suppose I'd be dead or something, right? She wouldn't have made any of this stuff up. Not then, not now. So I'm downstairs, not downstairs, I'm downstairs, but outside on the roadside. And my place is right up on the ledge, not far away. Stone stairs went up, and then there was my place. I have pictures of it galore, but I don't know the legalities again of showing a picture of a house that everybody in that town would recognize and telling a story like this. So I'll describe it with my mind. So I'm down there at the bottom by the roadside talking to one of my neighbors, and that's another thing I want to point out. I didn't have any neighbors to my left or right. It was pretty much woods for quite a ways to my left and right, and behind me was nothing but woods. There was an old stone, ruins of a stone building that I was told was a British Army garrison in the 1750s, for whatever. It's kind of an old area. But I didn't have any neighbors to my right, left, or behind me. So I'm down there talking to this guy, and my daughter comes out screaming hysterically, and I'm like, whoa. I said to this guy, hold on a second. And I went to see what's going on, and she was crying. And I said, what's going on? She said she moved all her stuff in, put all her clothes in the dresser and in the closet, hung the drapes up on the window, made her bed like she would. She was a real homemaker, real neat freak. I think she still is. And then she went downstairs for something and came back upstairs a little bit. And all her stuff, including her curtains, her blankets, all her clothes, were in one pile in the hallway upstairs. And this is where I don't understand me from that time, because you hear me telling these stories for the World Wide Web. Back then, I was taking my mother's advice, and my mother got her advice from her mother, and that's that you don't give spirits any attention at all. You don't even acknowledge them. You don't talk about them. You don't acknowledge them. And that doesn't give them energy to manifest in your life. Well, I was living that, and I'm here to tell you that doesn't work. But I told her, I was very firm with my daughter, and she was hysterical. I said, look, I don't want to hear this nonsense. I said, get back up there, get yourself moved into that room. But I said, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything about this. And quite dutifully, to her credit, she went back upstairs, started moving her stuff in, presumably, because I went back down. We were up on the steps talked to this neighbor and said, I'm sorry about that. And, her first, I don't know what I said to him. Started talking to this guy again. And it wasn't long after that, she's crying hysterically again. Hysterically. And tells me the same thing happened. That she started moving everything back in, left the room for a bit, and everything was back out in the hallway in a pile. And this time I wasn't so strict with her. I told her, look, get back in there, move that stuff in. I was pretty firm with her. And once again, to her credit, she went back up there and started moving her stuff in. And this is where things hit the fan. Yeah, where the defecation hit the rotary, whatever. The shit hit the fan. I'm back down there talking to this neighbor again. And next thing I know, she threw something through her upstairs window. Crash. I'm like, what the? I says, hold on. And she's screaming hysterically. And this time I ran up there to the house. And she was crying. And this time I wasn't firm with her. She told me there was an angry man in her bedroom in a flannel shirt. And I said, wait here. And I went up there to look. And her clothes were in the hallway. And I didn't see any angry man or anything. But then I started taking her serious. And I was calmed down. And I was compassionate, I guess, whatever. I said, look, you don't have to sleep upstairs. I said, you can have the couch. And she was happy with that arrangement. I'll sleep upstairs. And my son will be in one room, I'll be in the other. And she was okay with that. And so things continued on that summer. My daughter continued to have problems there. She said that she would be in the bathroom every time she'd go in to take a bath. She'd go underwater and she'd come back up and the faucets were all on. And she'd turn them off and she'd go underwater, come back up, and the faucets were all on. Over and over, she felt like she was being watched. And what am I going to say about that? I don't know what I said. There's nothing I can do about that. I believed her at this point. I want to say that my son, Timmy, and myself had zero problems. No problems at all there. None. No problems. Just my daughter did. All right. For whatever. My kids started school in September in that town. And it wasn't long after they started school there, they came back with reports that they were being picked on because of the house they lived in. A lot. And I said, what are they saying? I want you to know, at this point, I lived in that town about 2 years. You know, I'm fairly new there. I had a good job there as a training sergeant at the National Guard unit. I was their full-time training sergeant. But I was new in that town, relatively. I've been there about 2 years. You're going to hear more stories about some pretty doozies. And I said, what are they saying? And they told me, excuse me, that the kids in school had told them that the house, the people that lived there before us, that nobody had lived there for a while, for years. But the people that lived there before we did, years before, because it sat empty for a while, the wife had murdered her husband and had killed herself in there. And that the house was supposed to be haunted in a really bad way. And I'm thinking, great. Great. It wasn't long after that, my kids went back to live with their mother. I don't remember the reasons. There wasn't any, I don't think. They just did. And I'm stuck there living alone in this house with a reputation in town that I didn't know about. I really didn't care because, honestly, I wasn't having any problem. Was not having any problems there. I thought the place was great, though lonely for me, because I was there alone. The next time I had problems was again with somebody else, not myself, at this point. And I had friends, now and then some of my friends would come over. We'd drink some beer, talk, shoot the breeze. We wouldn't drink a whole lot of beer. Looking back, lucky if we drank a 6-pack of beer, honestly. And we'd just shoot the breeze. One of my friends was a prison guard. He was about 40 years old then. Really tough guy, honestly, a tough guy. Tough inside and out. Just a hard as nails kind of guy. Married with kids. But I always thought he was one of the toughest people I ever met. Hey, Timmy, he says, I'm going to come over and have some beers with you, And all right, Friday night, he shows up, brings his beer. We're going to sit down, have some drinks, and have some laughs. He got inside that house, and he instantly got spiritually attacked. He said, there's something bad in here. He started getting kind of cagey. He says, I don't know what it is. And he was embarrassed. He says, I'm sorry. He wasn't a very superstitious person. I mean, he wasn't a guy that told ghost stories. He wasn't a guy that told any kind of stories, honestly. He's whatever. So this was not his usual thing. And he kept telling me that there was something really, really bad in there. And it came to a head when, after he had a few beers, he had to go upstairs and use the bathroom. The only bathroom I had in the house was upstairs. This is where it really got bizarre. He got about 2 steps up those stairs. And I'm there, right there. It's just the living room and steps going up. And I've never seen anything like this before since. He was attacked by something invisible, physically attacked. And he would grimace, and he was playing, like doing this, and he was grimacing, and he started even crying a bit. And he was trying to fight something halfway up the stairs, and he was coming down like this, contorted and swinging and stuff. And I'm standing there in the living room like, what going on with my friend? And he got that back down the stairs, and he had tears. And he says, Timmy, he called me Timmy. He says, Timmy, you got to get out of here. And it was still on him, and it was pushing him right out towards my front door. He says, Timmy, you got to get out of here. He says, there's something really bad in here, Timmy. And he says, I'm sorry. He says, I can't stay in here. I got to go. And he says, you got to get out of here. You got to go. There's something really bad here. And he was out the front door. And he says, I got to go. And he left. I don't know why I'm getting choked up just remembering it. And I thought, what the heck? You know, now my daughter gets assailed. Now this, honestly, at this point in my life, if you hear more of these stories, and you will, probably, I was fed up with this haunting stuff. You know, it was starting to interfere with my life. And I'm like, just whatever. It's just so fed up. I wasn't afraid. I was angry. Like, my take on it was, there's something there. Look, you lived here then, when you walked this earth. It's my turn now. I pay the rent. This is my life, and it's my place now. And that was my whole take on it. I didn't want any of this nonsense. And following what my mother's advice and her mother's advice was, I wasn't going to entertain it either. And I didn't, to a point. Well, I saw this guy often in town, and he was embarrassed. He says, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to me. And I'm like, I don't worry about it, you know. I don't remember much beyond that. So about 2 weeks later, he came back. 6-pack, going to hang out. Because we were good friends, wanted to hang out, you know. And Friday night, and same thing happened. The exact same thing happened. It was a carbon copy of the last time. He got in that house, and he started saying, I don't know what it is, because he was not a spiritual, superstitious person. He did turn himself over to the Lord, but not at this point. He come to accept the Lord a little later down the road. It didn't have anything to do with his house. Maybe it did. Maybe he did. He wasn't a spiritual person, but he was spiritually attacked in my place. Hardcore. And I seen this big guy, 6'1", physically fit, likes to work out. Not adverse to brawling if he had to. Prison guard, maximum security prison. Great Meadows or Comstock, one of those two. And once again, he tried to go upstairs because there's only one bathroom, and he was attacked. First 2 steps going up, and physically the same thing, contorted, tears, and he's doing this, and it's bizarre. So I'm just showing you. He's fighting it all the way down. And it was on him all the way, pushed him right out my front door, just like it did. It didn't just back him down the stairs. It backed him through my living room and right out the front door. And the man was hysterical this time, and he did not come back. Yeah, it's kind of upsetting. This thing's upset me then. They upset me now. And he just told me again, Timmy, you got to get out of here. There's something really bad in here. Something really bad in here, Timmy. I don't know what it is, but you've got to get out of here. I didn't get out of there yet. And he never came back. We remained friends, though. But he wouldn't set foot on that property again. Now, granted, I had a couple of friends that didn't have any problems at all. No, not a couple. Yeah, I had a couple of friends that didn't have any problems. Not many. I had one friend, Dave, and his father. And they... very rarely they'd show up. But when they did, they didn't have any problems. So some people did, some didn't. What else? I had a parrot. The parrot didn't like women. It would attack any woman that set foot in the place. It would attack my daughter, go right for their eyes. And I'd have to put it in a cage whenever a woman, young or old, whatever, there weren't many women in that place. My daughter and my friend's father and his wife. And I'd have to put the bird in the cage because it would go right after them and it would go after their eyes. I don't know if this is related. There seemed to be something about gender going on. A woman murdered her husband and herself. What happened? It came to a head with me. Again, I didn't have any problems in there. No hauntings, nothing. I lived in there alone. And I don't know if this plays into it or not. But it might, because I did notice that this is when I started having problems with the place. I had a woman that really wanted to go out with me. And eventually I relented and I went out with her for a while. And she came over to my place a few times, not often. And that's when my problem started. And the first problem I had, and I got to thank God for this. This is almost a mystery, but God let me know. I was protected. Get this, right? I pretty much live downstairs, and the upstairs I use for storage. I didn't use the bed. I used one room for storage, my son's old room. The room my daughter had problems in, I didn't do any. I just left that room alone. You know, angry man in a flannel shirt. You can have it. You know, whatever. I lived downstairs pretty much on the couch. That was my bed. That's where I sat. I'd usually come home from work and plop down on the couch like most people do. One day during this time period in the story, I came home, and I don't know how I knew this. I don't know how. I can't explain this. I went to plop down butt first on the couch, and before I plopped down, something said, and I caught myself before I hit the cushion. And I don't know how I knew this. I must have been told by God. But before I landed on my butt on the cushion with all my body weight, something said, don't. And I caught myself. And then I got up and I went to the cushion, and I happened to have one. I got this like 5 years ago. You know, got it on eBay. I don't know why. I got this. I like to collect antiques and bric-a-brac. But this is identical. And it might be the same one for all I know, because it's identical. It's antique. I pushed down on the cushion, right exactly where I was going to plop down, the middle cushion, and this pops up through the cushion. You know, I pushed down the cushion. I don't know if you can see it, but it's an antique hairpin. Steel and rusty, probably out of the 1800s. I don't know if you can see this, and I don't know the resolution on this. Let me see if I can get something to highlight this a little better. All right. Just in case you can't see it. Maybe you can now. That was in my cushion. And the cushion was thick enough so that the tip of it, when you put it up through the bottom of the cushion, the tip was disguised. When I pushed down on the cushion, it revealed itself. And you better believe I was upset. I was upset to darn near to the point of tears. Who or what would do this to me? I went to work, locked my doors. I didn't have any enemies because I thought about it. Who do I know that would do this to me? Nobody. I didn't have any enemies. Nobody. I searched. I think I really was disturbed over this for weeks. I didn't want to think it was a spirit. Who would do this to me? You know? Who would do this? What a mean thing. I could tell you right now that if I would have plopped down on that thing, where it would have caught me right in the crotch and probably, I don't know, I should have thought of this to get something paper. This probably would have buried itself completely in me. And being that it's like rusty, it's antique, rusty metal, if I put all my body weight plopping down on that couch. Where it was, right in the middle of that couch, it would have caught me, not in the butt, somewhere even more sensitive. And after a couple of weeks, I finally put it together. I didn't have anybody that would do this to me. They would have to break into my place because I locked it up. And I concluded it was whatever was doing the other things to other people that were there, my friend and my daughter, namely. And I got mad. I didn't get afraid. I got mad. And I want to tell you the truth. I had a couple of friends that smoked weed. Back then, a lot of people smoke weed. But I didn't. I was in the military. I didn't like stuff anyway, but I was in the military and I was active duty, full time. It was my career. Well, I took the pen that was in my cushion, this pen, and I said, I gave it to one of my friends. I said, hey, you want a roach clip? You know, you put your little joint on the end of that and smoke it. I know how this stuff works. And the guy said, him and his girlfriend, yeah, sure. It was pretty cool, like an antique. So they gladly took it. Yeah, you got a free roach clip for your joint, cigarette, whatever. And then I went back to my house and I made an announcement this is one of the few times I communicated. I said, oh, you know, that pen you put in that, I said, I want you to know it's now a roach clip for some of my marijuana smoking friends to mock it. I was angry at it. My daughter got driven out. My friend was driven out. And now something laid a very, very malicious trap for me. One that would have hurt me pretty good and probably caused an infection and who knows what. It would not have been good. I was upset. Well, nothing much happened. Let me think. Actually, it wasn't long after that. Things come to a head. It got worse. It got more violent. I have scars from it. What happened next? I'm trying to think if I'm skipping anything. I probably am. I'll think of it after I make this. Well, it wasn't long after that. One day, summer day, I went upstairs to take a bath and relax. And it was a nice balmy day out. I'm going to tell you, there's no breeze. Because I've thought about this then. There was no breeze at all. And I had the window open in this tiny little bathroom over the sink. And I'm laying in the tub, relaxing, just kind of, chilling out in the tub. A lot of people just do. And suddenly, the window, which was off to my left, just went bang with such force and violence that all the glass in that window shattered. And where do you think that glass went? Didn't go out. Didn't fall back into the sink. It was over the sink. Nope. I looked over, startled, just in time to see it all coming channeled right at me. Looked like special effects off an old horror movie. But all the glass looked like little knife blades coming right at me. And I had just enough time to go, whoosh, to turn. And it was all aimed at my crotch. All aimed at my crotch. And I turned just in time to catch it all on my hip. And it cut me up pretty good. I still have some scars from it these years later. And that bath water that was comfortable now turned red real fast. Blood is a very strong pigment. And next thing I know, I'm in a tub of red water. And I got out of the tub. And I got some pretty good cuts going on, but I'm all right. But if I didn't move, half a second later, I would have caught all that right in the crotch. And you better believe I am mad. I'm livid at this spirit. Livid. Not frightened. Livid. And my reaction was, I went off. I went off. I started cussing it out, condemning it. I went off like in a temper tantrum at it. And then I calmed down, and then I started thinking, I think I need to get out of here, finally. It was a beautiful house, but I think it was time to leave. And I did pray for God and his angels to protect me at that point, and nothing else happened. After that, I moved out. Oh, there was something. I missed something. I'm sorry. Yes, I moved out at that point. Let me back up. There was something else. I told you earlier. This was before I got cut up. This was before I for this between the needle and the pen. My landlord lived across the street, and she came to my workplace and told me that she went into my place with a gun. And I said, "What?" And she said, "Yes." She said, "Tim, you need to know this." She said she saw there was a very strange looking woman in my place. She said she was very strange and acted very strange. And she thought I needed to know this because she thought somebody was breaking into my place. And I got upset. I said, "You don't need to go into my place with a gun. I'm renting this. What if it was somebody I know and you shot them?" She said, "No, Tim, this was somebody really strange looking and strange acting." And she was kind of shook up. Once again, I didn't want to hear about it. I told her, I'm saying this is awful. But I actually got hold of the police and had them talk to her and tell her, "Don't come into my place with a loaded gun again." Not without me knowing about it. But I'm looking back at that, and I really was in serious denial about this place. I've had so much stuff happen to me. I didn't want to have another haunted house. And that's part of the reason I make these stories. I can't believe people go looking for this stuff. You know, I can't imagine what would happen if I went looking for it. So I was pretty upset. So I'm reliving this, and I get upset when I think about it again after all these years. Otherwise, I don't think about it. But reliving it all, some of these stories were like this. But at that point, I moved out, and I got another place in Putnam Station. Very beautiful home. And I got another story about that one. And that story is called Memento Mori. I'm going to save that one. As Christmas season is upon us, no more of these spooky stories. If I post any more stories, it'll be something happy. So, that's story 21, The Stone House Where Evil Resided. And I'll tell you this because a lot of people say, well, all spirits are ghosts. There's no ghosts, they're all evil spirits. Some people say, no, they're just trapped souls that need your help to pass on. Well, I think personally at this point, both are right. But you need the spirit of discernment to know which. You need to be careful. You don't need to be seeking any spirits out. Just Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. That's it. And the company of good people. And I hope you find all of those this holiday season for Christmas. Thank you. Till the next one. No more spooky stuff before Christmas.